Hello, lovely folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Lisette Auton, and I'm an author, and I'm here with Puffin's virtual events and the Empathy Day Festival, and it's all very exciting. And I'm going to be talking about my brand new book, The Starlight Rebel. I know that you can find the first chapter on Puffin's website as well, so if you want a sneaky peek before it's even come out yet, then please go and do that. If you would like to, grab yourselves a pen and some paper for an exercise that we're going on in the middle of this webinar. So I hope you're all seated comfortably. It's going to be a whistle-top tour and it's going to be great fun. I've got lovely Sarah from Puffin behind the scenes pressing the button for me. So if I go, next slide, please, I'm talking to Sarah. All right, next slide, please. Sarah, thank you. Okay, so this is me. My name's Lisette Auton, and these are some of the things that I love. I love reading. I love kayaking. I like having naps in random places. I love chips and the beach. And my best friend in the entire universe is my little rescue dog called Harper Lee. Have we got any dog fans out there? Give a wave if you're a dog fan. If you're a cat fan, amazing stuff. So Harper Lee is teeny and she howls a lot. She's missing lots of teeth, so her tongue falls out now. Next slide, Sarah. So this is a question for you. First question of the day. What did I want to be when I grew up? Did I want to be a bearder, someone who wears a beard? From the 1990s, when everything was very shiny. Did I want to be a writer? In the Victorian era, apparently, according to that photo? Did I want to be a boxer who wears a box on my head? Or did I want to be a nurse with a terrifying grin? That is probably the point in time that my mum and dad should have realised that I am autistic and they told me to smile and look happy. Sometimes my face doesn't add up to how my feelings are feeling inside. So stick your hand up if you thought bearder. Stick your hand up if you thought writer. What about boxer? What about nurse? Right, let's reveal the answer. These are my actual jobs. These are the things I wanted to be when I grew up. I always wanted to be a writer. I love words. I say that I do stuff with words. That's my job. It's the only thing that I'm good at, and I love it. Also, randomly, I seem to have become a boxer too. So yes, and there's bearder. You'll find out about that soon. Next slide, Sarah. So this is my job as a writer. I do loads and loads of stuff. I work in the community. That's me wearing a boiler suit covered in questions that I was asking people. I write plays. I'm a playwright. And there's me with a lovely guy in the pink shirt performing in a play. I get cartoons made out of me. I make films. There's me being celebrated as a winner, one of the films that I make. I do poetry. I stand on bridges and perform poems. And the best thing about my job is I get to hang out and do workshops, events like this, huge events in person with loads and loads of different children and teachers. Great fun. Next one. So I'm going to talk today mostly about me being a children's author. And I'm a children's author for Puffin, and I have 4 books with them. My first one was called The Secret of Haven Point, and it's set in a lighthouse, and that's a fantasy and an adventure. Then there was The Stickleback Catchers, and that was a time travel book, and there was a puzzle to solve. And then there was Lights Up, that had 3 different timelines set in 3 different points of time in history. And it was a spooky ghost story with a ghost dog named Rex. And then the 4th book, my new one, The Starlight Rebel, is a sci-fi one, science fiction, and it's set in the future. Next slide. So, as you can probably tell, my stories are all very, very different. So there's some things that they have in common. And I'd like you to have a think about what you think they might be. And I'd like you to have a think about why I write them, why they're important to me. Okay, let's find out. So for me, I always begin with place. That's something that all my books have in common. Some people, or you, when you're writing stories, you might start with a character, or you might begin with a question that you want to solve, or an idea for a plot. I always begin with place. So there's the real life lighthouse for The Secret of Haven Point. There's the real life theatre for Lights Up. That's in my hometown of Darlington. And when I launched that book, I got to do it on the stage with a full house of people. It was incredible. And that one there, that building is round the corner from my old studio. Can you have a look closely at that building, the Darlington Bottling Company Limited building, and have a little bit of a think about what might be missing from that photo? What do you think is missing? There's no door and there's no windows. I was so intrigued by a building with no door. So that became the inspiration for the stickleback catchers. And that's where Fig and all his scruffy crow friends, they all hang out in there guarding memories and keeping them secret. So next time you're walking around the streets or you're near school or you're at home, have a think of what places might inspire you to write a book or create a piece of art or a story. Next one. For the Starlight Rebel, it was a little bit different. It's always been my hometown that's inspired me, but I went on a trip to visit my uncle to Canada. And while we were there, we visited Niagara Falls. In my head, it was going to be very calm and very, very beautiful. And there was going to be trees and green. And when I got there, my head almost exploded because it was bright, buzzing, neon lights and big buildings and skyscrapers and everything glowed and everything was shiny and bright. And that was the inspiration for the Starlight Rebel. Next one. As well as these things, space. I've always been so interested by space. Anybody here get excited about space and galaxies and stars? And then also trees. I love trees. And trees for me are somewhere really calming. And I needed my main character in the Starlight Rebel, Astropher, to have somewhere really calming to settle her brain. So there became the Museum of Trees. And then there was the Star Rescue Society. They have lots of odds and ends and bits and bobs and things like in rusty old sheds. Love that kind of stuff. Next thing, Sarah. This is the other thing that ties my books together. There's place, and then there's the fact that I'm disabled. So sometimes I use a wheelchair, sometimes I use a walking stick, and sometimes I don't need one at all. And I'm also neurodivergent. I'm autistic. My brain works in wonderful and brilliant ways, and I love it exactly the way it is. So that's the thing that my books have in common. They always have disabled and neurodivergent characters at the heart of the story, because I think it's absolutely important that people like me and people like us who are disabled and neurodivergent see themselves represented in books. And other people who aren't disabled and they aren't neurodivergent can read about our lives and our stories in books. And that gives us empathy. That gives us the ability to understand other people's feelings. And that's what my books are all about. So because I'm disabled, I hang about with some friends and they happen to be deaf. And when you're deaf, you can give a sign name to people. You can't just choose it yourself. Otherwise, I'd probably pick Captain Wonderpants or Mrs. Awesome. Sometimes you get a really, really dodgy sign name. So in The Secret of Haven Point, Willis, one of the characters, he sniffs all the time. So they call him Snotnose. Luckily, I didn't get Snotnose. Because of my freckles, my sign name is Freckles. See if you can do that. Say, hi, Freckles. Have a go. Hi, Freckles. Thank you. You're saying hi to me. Brilliant. Next slide, Sarah. So this is one of the reasons why diversity and representation and empathy is really important to me. So when I was young, probably younger than you are now, I used to love reading. Well, can you see what I'm doing slightly wrong in that photo of me when I'm little? Yeah, haven't quite managed to get books the right way up yet. But I used to love reading. And so I used to make stories, and I used to get really worried about whether you were meant to staple them together or sellotape them together, because can you see that logo at the top up there? That's a symbol, not like that monkey crashing cymbals like drum kits, but a symbol that represents something. And that symbol represents Puffin books. And loads of the books that I read when I was your age had that little yellow puffin on them. So I really, really, really wanted to have that symbol on my book. So I needed to get my book published. And It turns out you can't just send your stapled or sellotaped books to Puffin. You need to get yourself an agent, not a secret spy agent like that there, though my agent Molly is brilliant, but she's not quite a secret spy. You have to get yourself one who's like in football. Your agent does all the wheeling and the dealing, and they make sure that if you want to move teams, they get that sorted for you. An agent can read your book and then can send it to a publisher, and hopefully they'll buy it and publish it for you. So I was really excited to meet an agent. She'd read my work and she said, do you want the good news or the bad news? Put your hand up if you think I wanted the good news. Okay. Put your hand up if you think I wanted the bad news. Of course, I didn't want the bad news. I wanted the good news. And she said, Lisette, you can write. You've got this mythical, magical thing called a voice. You're writing sparkles and it leaps off the page. We really want to read your words. I was dead excited. And then she said, do you want the bad news? Do you think I wanted the bad news? No, of course I didn't. I'm autistic. I've learned that sometimes I have to say yes, even when I'd like to say no. So I said, yes, please tell me the bad news. And she said, Lisette, your story is rubbish. I was so disappointed and angry and upset. And so I went up to the lighthouse where The Secret of Haven Point ended up being based on. It's near my nana's house. And I went up to the top and you can see that little picture of a door there. And it's got a little brass fist for a handle. Right at the top of the lighthouse, it was hidden. And I went and I gave it a little fist pump. And immediately I realised what was wrong with my story. I'd set it in London. Don't really know anything about London. I live in a little town in the northeast of England. And I'd put all non-disabled characters in my book because I'd never really read about them at all, ever. And I realised that I wanted to write a book that was set in a little town in the northeast of England, and I wanted it to be full of disabled and neurodivergent characters because that's what I really needed to see in books. And I thought that's maybe what other people really need to see in books first. So I did that. And then I got a lovely agent called Molly. And then she sent it to the Puffin people and they said yes. So ever since, I've been publishing stories about neurodivergent and disabled characters having adventures set in the Northeast, because I think that's so important that we see ourselves represented on bookshelves. That thing at the bottom, that's very important to the Northeast. If you ever come up to Redcar and go to the beach, you can get yourself a lemon top. It's Mr. Whippy ice cream with like Mr. Whippy lemon sorbet on top. It's magic. Next slide. So these are the kinds of things that you can sometimes see lots of in my books. These are my mobility aids. There's my walking stick. It's brilliant. It's got the Puffin characters from the book, The Secret of Haven Point. They're all over it. And then at the top, there's me in my wheelchair. Me and my sister were feeding ghosts. Not ghosts. That would have been amazing if we were feeding ghosts. Goats. And they were so hungry, they even ate the bag. Then at the bottom, that's a bit when mobility aids go wrong. I got chased by a goose and couldn't get away fast enough, and it bit me. Next one, Sarah. And these are sometimes the things that disabled and neurodivergent people do or need, and you don't always see them. So I've got all those things on my desk at the moment that sometimes I use those to help me concentrate. If I'm performing, I often sit down to do it, and I quite often have bed days. Also, I've got a terrible memory, so I've got my keys around my neck, so I never get locked out. Next one, Sarah. So there are always disabled and neurodivergent characters at the heart of all my stories. Sometimes the impairments that they have are visible. So they use visible mobility aids, like at the top of the lighthouse there, you can see people who are wheelchair users, or Badger, who's blind and she's using a cane, or Mimi with her crutches. And then sometimes there's people who you can't see or tell, like Nuzrat at the bottom. She needs to rest a lot, like I do too. And Titch, who's very, very tall. They get anxious quite a lot. And then there's brilliant Astropher, the star of my new book, The Starlight Rebel. Next slide, Sarah. So, because I'm autistic, I have special interests. They're things that I get really excited about. Does anybody else get really excited about researching and looking into facts and finding out things. So these are some of the things that I absolutely love. And researching them has meant that they've ended up in my books. So I love weird place names and I love miniatures. Both of those were in my book Lights Up, and stars and space. That's in the Starlight Rebel. Next one, please, Sarah. So this is what I do with my word hoard building and my special interest. I combine it together to make sure I have ideas. So if you've got your paper and pen handy, we're going to have a go at using it now. So when I was writing The Secret of Haven Point, I was really nervous because I wanted to have, hold on 2 secs, prop moment. Drum roll, please, everybody. There we go. I wanted to have a captain who had a kitten in his beard. My sister had one job. This was meant to be a kitten. It looks like a fox, doesn't it? But I was really nervous that somebody else might have done it first. So I did a Google. And when I Googled, I found Captain Louis Coulson. If you do a Google after this, you'll find Captain Louis Coulson too. And he was, you think who might be the tallest person in the room? See how tall they are, maybe get them to stand up. Imagine there's 2 of them and one stands on the other person's shoulders. That is the length of Captain Louis Coulson's beard. It was epically long. And in it, he didn't just keep cats and kittens, he also kept nests for birds. I think it would have been very, very stinky. That's why the captain in my book has a very short beard. But what we're going to do, using that as inspiration, we are going to build a word hoard. So if you take your piece of paper and pen and have a go at drawing a shape like that, which kind of looks like a beard. Draw a shape like that. If you don't have paper and pen, don't worry, you can think of these stuff inside your head. And I want to know, what things would you keep in your beard? There's some examples there. Games controller, a door to a magic world, a pencil case, definitely chips, a nice cup of tea, the secrets of the weather, stars, space, galaxy. Have a go at drawing now in your beard the things that you would keep inside it if it was magical. And that's a way we can build a word hoard that's inspiration for your book. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I'm going to have a go at doing it behind me, while you have a go. Okay. I definitely keep stars. There's lots of those in the Starlight Rebel. What else would I keep? Quite warm at the moment, so I think I'd have a drink with some ice cubes in, definitely. You don't have to be worried about being terrible at drawing. I'm terrible at drawing. That's Harper Lee. That's my dog. I'd definitely keep her in my beard. Who else? This is my family and all my friends. I'd keep them in my beard. So this is a way, if you're doing work at school ever and you're given a title, say for a story, and you can't think of what you should write, the best thing that you can do is build a word hoard with all the ideas in your head, no matter how silly or how weird, and then you'll have the beginnings of a story. So you can finish those later if you want to. Let's crack on with the next slide, Sarah. So when I've put all those things together, it adds up to a book. Place, neurodivergent and disabled characters, things that I'm excited about, my special interests. And then we came up with Starlight Rebel. This is my new book. It's set in the future. The year is 3897 and life on Earth is a noisy neon dream. An artificial shell covers the sky, so no one remembers the stars that lie beyond. For freckled and neurodivergent Astropha, going outside is a nightmare, and she's never felt like she truly belongs. Maybe spending the rest of her life working in a sock factory is the best she can ever hope for. But then Astropha meets someone who shows her that the world is bigger than she ever imagined, and everyone is in grave danger. Her new friend believes Astropha is the one person who can save the future. But how? Next slide. So this is Astropher Nova. She is the hero of the Starlight Rebel. She's freckles, just like me, and she's neurodivergent, just like me. Didn't really realize when I was writing this story how much I was going to base her on me. Maybe I felt it was about time that people who are freckly and neurodivergent get to be the hero of a story. She is having the worst day ever, ever. Her big brother has got a brilliant birthday present. Hers sucks. It's terrible. She's gone to the work process day where they're going to find out what their job is. He gets to be an athlete, a big star. She gets to work in the sock factory. There's weird things going on. She can't breathe as well as she usually can, and her freckles start glowing. And then all of a sudden, in the Museum of Trees, in the place that she feels most safe in all the universe, she meets an alien creature who's going to save her life and change it forever. Next slide, Sarah. So, do you remember that my sign name was Freckles? There's me in a glow-in-the-dark adventure golf course. And my mum said, Lisette, you've got to take a photo of your face. And my freckles were glowing. And that was the inspiration for the character Astropher. Next slide, Sarah. So these, I'm going to grab my book. These are my best mates. Steph has dwarfism. She's a person of short stature. And Kev, my best mate, he has limb difference. So he's missing one of his arms and his leg, and he has really cool prosthetics that he wears. And I never, ever, ever put friends or real people in books, except I did this time. So I want to read you this tiny little bit of the Starlight Rebel. This is when Astropher has gone to work at the sock factory on her first day, and it is going to be the worst day ever and a worst place to work in all the entire universe. A man with a crutch and a bright yellow flower brooch handed me a glass of water, and then Doris and Slugger came over. The height difference between the two of them was spectacular. Lots of the water slopped over the side of the glass because my hands were still shaky. I peered beyond the two of them and my jaw dropped. We were in a big hall strung with paper streamers in pastel tones. The space was divided into different areas. A desk stacked with actual paper books that I wanted to run to and sniff and read, a half-finished wooden boat, upside down with tools laid about, a desk heaped with loads of knotty bundles of wood and different-sized spiky sticks, glass jars and bottles filled with different coloured liquids. One desk was covered in tiny, wibbly-edged cardboard shapes that were sorted into piles by colour, and some of them had been interlocked to form the edge of a forest image, like I'd seen in the Museum of Trees. And at each of these many different stations were lots of people who had bits of them missing, or were in chairs with wheels, or wore headphones, or who rocked or clapped. It's rude to stare, said Doris gently, but I can understand why you're doing it. I did too when I first got here. You're not, I stumbled over my words. Yes, said Doris. This is not, yes, said Slugger. I blinked at the two faces that stared at me with kindness and care. But they also had a guarded, wary look that I realised was the same one I had whenever I met new people for the first time and didn't know how they would react to me and my freckles, and I had to hold all my wriggly brain bits deep inside me, along with the fear of accidentally saying stuff out loud or the wrong thing. I'd never seen anyone have that same look before. Everyone's like me, I said, and then I began to giggle with relief and awe. This seemed like a place where I could belong, more than anywhere I'd ever been before. My hands went all clicky and flappy with joy, and I didn't care who saw. And that's exactly how I feel when I'm in a place where I feel safe and I'm surrounded by people who are disabled and neurodivergent and other people who have empathy and understand how that feels. And that's as exciting as it gets for me. Astropher has a lot more exciting things in store for her. You'll have to read the book to find out. Next one, Sarah. So now we're going to have a quick fire game of miniature or real. One of my special interests is miniatures. I love making tiny things. Another one is weird place names. In Lights Up, these are the two automatons, old-fashioned robots, and they're named because of those place names that you can see, Wallish Walls and Snod's Edge. make sure you have a notebook with you if you're ever going to new places and write down weird or different names. Let me know any weird or different names that you ever find on your travels. Maybe they'll make it into one of my books. Next slide, Sarah. So these are the noises that happen when Walish Walls and Snod's Edge, when their arms fall off, which happens quite a lot. So when you see a picture, if you think it's a miniature, you're going to say clank. And if you think it's real, you're going to say thud. Next slide. So do you think this is miniature or real? If you think it's miniature, clank, real, thud. After 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Let's find out the answer. It's real. It's a little village in Italy, but it's used as a special lens on a camera to take the photos to make it look like a miniature. Next one, Sarah. So do you think this is miniature? Say clank, real, thud. 1, 2, 3, go. Let's find out the answer. It's a miniature. It's a model of a space station, like the thought that may be in the Starlight Rebel. Next one. Do you think this is miniature, clank, real, thud? 1, 2, 3, go. Let's find out the answer. It's real. It's an incredible Georgian theatre in Richmond, in North Yorkshire. And that's where I based one of the magical theatres in Lights Up on. Next one. Do you think this is miniature, clank, real, thud? 1, 2, 3, go. Let's find out the answer. It is a miniature. It's an incredible artist who makes tiny, tiny little models of grotty places. Next one. Miniature, clank, real, thud. 3, 2, 1, go. Let's find out the answer. This is somewhere Astropher would find really calming, but it's a miniature. An incredible artist makes forests. It's extraordinary. Next one. Miniature, clank, real, thud. 3, 2, 1, go. This is the answer. It is the James Webb Telescope that they sent out and found amazing, amazing photos of the cosmos beyond. Have a look it up afterwards if you can. And that was one of the inspirations for the Starlight Rebel. It's real. Next one. This is the final one. Is this miniature, clank, real, thud? 3, 2, 1, go. Let's reveal the answer. It's both. I cheated. I'm so sorry. It's based on a real life hotel. But when they were making the film, they realized that they couldn't keep people away for all the time. So they turned it into a model. When I grow up, I'd love to be a model maker and work on something like that. Next one. So this is what all my books have in common. They might have lots of different genres like sci-fi or adventure or ghost stories, but they always, always do this. And this is what I like to say. When you're an author, you get to create your own world. And this is the world I want to live in. One that contains all sorts of humans, kindness and acceptance, access, a little bit of magic, and most of all, love. That image there is from The Secret of Haven Point, where the gang are getting together to make bunting for a wedding. And you can see all sorts of different impairments and mobility aids, and they're all having a brilliant time together. Next slide. So this is towards the end of the presentation now, and I want to do this together. So fair winds and following seas is what they say in The Secret of Haven Point before they go on an adventure together or when they say goodbye. So I'm going to say it to you, and will you say it back to me? Okay, here we go. Fair winds and following seas. I think that was a bit rubbish. I couldn't hear you all the way over here in Darlington. So I'm going to say it to you again, and then you say it back to me and try and blow the roof off the room that you're in. And if you don't like loud noises, put your hands over your ears. I'm going to put my hands over my ears so you don't scare me. Okay. Fair winds and following seas. Epic. Brilliant. Well done. Okay, this is what the stickleback catchers say when they go on an adventure or when they say goodbye to each other. Are you ready? I'm going to say it to you, and then you say it back to me. Follow the river. Amazing. Well done. And the last one. Next slide, Sarah. So in the Starlight Rebel, at the end, they've had this horrible time where the world has been closed up inside a shell, and anybody who is different or other has been sent away. And it's so sad. And so Astrava has to leave a protest to try and save not just our planet, but the entire galaxy and get the shell opened so they can see the stars once more. And they go to a protest, and she just knows herself as Astrava. And all of a sudden, there's people with placards, with signs, and they all say the Starlight Rebel, and they're all chanting her name. So we're going to shout it together. We're going to shout it together 3 times, like we're shouting at a protest. The Starlight Rebel, Starlight Rebel, Starlight Rebel. Well done, folks. You've been awesome. Next slide, Sarah. So I just want to say an oodly massive thank you for joining me today. It has been so, so kind of you to spend your precious time to do that. I'm really, really chuffed and happy. Look, you've given me a proper, instead of like scary nurse smile, you've given me a proper smile, which is lovely. If you'd like to finish your beards, that would be a brilliant task to do. And maybe you could write a story based on the things that you've put in your beard. If you take any photos of you with your beard, please do, if you're able to, cover your faces if you have to, pop them up on Instagram. I'd love to see them. You can tag me at Lisette_Auton. You can tag Puffin Books UK, and you can also tag EmpathyLab UK in your beard pictures. I'd love to see them. I really, really would. So now we've got some time left for some questions. Some schools have sent them in advance, so I'm going to rattle through these for you now. So Little Dean Primary. Hi there. Hope you're watching and have had a great time. You had some great questions for me. So when and why did you start writing books? So I was very, very little. And I started writing them because, well, I wasn't very good at sports and lots of other hobbies. I was sometimes a bit tired to do them, but I always had my imagination. And that's what I still do now. If I'm having a bit of a wonky day, I still imagine stories. So I was very little and I started writing them probably as soon as I could write and as soon as I could draw. But I started writing them properly when I was probably in my 20s. But because I didn't see books with neurodivergent and disabled characters in, I didn't do it seriously. And my first book wasn't published until I was 40. And I'm still a bit grumpy about that. So will you please write all the things that are really important to you and get them in books and get them on shelves so we can make sure that everyone's represented? And then I can read them, and that would be brilliant. Another question from Little Dean. Who inspired you to start writing? Well, I was always writing books, but they were like scribbly ones and in my own head because I didn't know you could do it as a job. My dad worked in a factory. My mum was a receptionist and a secretary, and no one had creative jobs. So I just assumed that not only were books like this one made in a factory, but that the ideas of the story inside, the ideas were kind of made in the factory too. And no one ever told me otherwise. So I was at school and we were given a book, and that was really, really important to me because I didn't have very many books at home. We didn't have lots of money. I went to the library, but I didn't own lots of books. So to have a book of my very own was so important. And this woman who'd given me the book asked me what my name was, and I told her. And she wrote it down in a little notebook and said it was very unusual and she'd keep that for later, which I thought was very strange behavior. And then she took a pen and she signed her name in my book. I was gobsmacked. That was my book. I didn't want her to write her name in my book. It turned out that was the author, Anne Fine, and she'd come into my school. And that was the point in time that I realised that you could do making up stories and writing them as a job. mind. I was so excited by that. And that's when I knew I wanted to be an author. So that's why it's really important that we meet people doing loads and loads of different jobs so we can find out what it's like. And then we can be inspired to maybe do that too. So if you want to be an artist or a writer, go for it. Keep practicing, keep being awesome. Little Dean have also asked, why did you decide to set your new book in the future? Do you know what? I don't know whether I ever properly made a decision to do that. I knew when I went to Niagara Falls and it was all buzzy and neon and flashy and noisy that I wanted to write about that. And then I wondered what it would be like if we forgot about green spaces and calm spaces and trees and everything was like that, how much that would hurt my head and how much it would hurt somebody's head if they were like astropher. And then I realized that probably in order to make that feel realistic, I'd have to set it in the future. And so then that led me into the whole world of space and galaxies and aliens and all sorts of cool stuff. So I think it was the place that inspired me. And then the decision made itself when I realized what I wanted to write about. How many books have I written? So I've had 4 books that are published, all the 4 that you can see on the screen there. I also wrote the rubbish one that the agent went, ooh, that is rubbish. That's sitting in a drawer somewhere. I doubt I'll ever do anything like that. Lots of books that I wrote when I was little, and I've got some books that I'm working on now, but there's 4 books like that that are published. And I've also got other things like poetry books and plays because I do lots and lots of different kinds of writing. I do stuff with words. Thank you, Little Dean Primary. These questions were meant. Okay. Greystoke Primary. Hello. Hi, Greystoke. Thank you for your questions. Where did you get the idea from the book from? Well, as you know, it was the place and it was also my freckles. But I was also thinking about the fact that when I was at school, I was rubbish at lots of stuff. Geography, couldn't remember where the places were. Sports, couldn't catch a ball, fell over lots of the time. Science, once set my friend Naomi's hair on fire. That's how bad I was at science. Maths, my dad laughs at me. When I run out of fingers, I can't do adding up anymore or any form of sums. So the only thing that I was good at was words. And I was wondering about what if there was a character who loved creating maps, who loved exploring, who was very, very clever, but none of those kind of things that she was clever at because of her neurodivergent brain fitted in to the world she lived in. What would happen to a character like that? And that gave me Astropher. And that gave me the book, The Starlight Rebel. So, what am I working on next? Thanks, Greystoke. I haven't even told my agent what I'm working on next. I'm not sure I can tell you. Do you promise not to tell anyone? I speak in a whisper. I really like walking my dog in the dog park. And I've got a very exciting adventure story that I think I'm going to set there. And there's also one at a reservoir. It's very, very creepy and scary. But shh, don't tell it. Thank you, Greystoke. West Lakes Academy. Got a question from you. Hi there, West Lakes. What advice would I give my 12-year-old self? Oh my goodness, what an incredible question. Oh, I'd probably say, don't spend loads and loads of time working exceptionally hard to try and fit in with everybody else and do everything that everybody else is doing. Spend the time instead working out what you love, what you're brilliant at, and spend your time and focus doing that instead, and finding friends and people who will understand, be your tribe, get that, support you. So if you love reading, see if you can go and to your school library or see if you can help set up a school library and make a safe haven for other people who love reading. Yeah, connect with what you love and find the people who love it too. That's probably the advice I would give. That was a gorgeous question. Thank you, Westlakes. And finally, Coleridge Primary School. Hi out there. You have sent some brilliant questions, and they are: who was your favourite author as a child? Hands down, A. Millen. I loved Winnie the Pooh. Absolutely adored it. And then what was your favourite book? Do you know what? I had never seen anyone with like a northeast mouth and voice like mine on the page. Have you heard of David Armand, the author? When I first read Skellig, mind exploded because there was my tongue on the page, my northeast voice. So that's my favourite book. But also, and the reason my dog is called Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that's my all-time favourite book. And finally, how do you overcome a writing block? I do a word hoard like we did in our beards. And also, I go for walks. I say I've got a brain percolator. It's about here in the back of my head. I make sure the idea or the thing I'm struggling with, make sure it's kind of floating around in the back of my head. And then I go for a walk, or I make collages, or I do doodles. I do something different from writing. And then sometimes the idea just pings in my head. The other thing I do, and it sounds like really rubbish advice, but I just start writing. Even if I start writing, I really don't want to be writing. Lisette, this is a ridiculous idea. I really can't think of the answer to that plot problem that I have at the moment, but maybe, and all of a sudden, the answer tends to come. So just do it anyway, or stick it in your brain percolator and go for a walk or do another activity and see what comes. So that's all we have time for, folks. Thank you for your time. If you've got your beards, tag me on Instagram, Lisette Auton. I'd love to see them. This is the Starlight Rebel. If you'd like to get yourself a copy, I'd bloomin' love that. Thank you for your time. Bye, folks. Bye.